You know, I still can't believe how quickly a casual family dinner can turn into an absolute war zone. One minute, we were all sitting around, pretending to be a happy family, and the next, my cousin, Sarah, was openly mocking my military service, while her husband, Mark, just snickered beside her. She just plays soldier. Sarah had scoffed, waving her hand dismissively, as if my 10 years of active duty, 2 deployments, and countless sacrifices were just a little hobby. Her words hung in the air, heavy and laced with contempt, and I felt a familiar heat rise in my chest. But this time, I wasn't going to let it slide. This time, I had a secret weapon, something they never expected. Was I wrong for what I did next? Tell me, honestly, if you would have done the same thing. It all started, as most family dramas do, with a seemingly innocent invitation. My aunt, bless her heart, had decided to host a big family reunion barbecue. It was supposed to be a joyous occasion, a chance for everyone to catch up, share stories, and pretend that all the underlying tensions and resentments didn't exist. I had just returned from my second deployment, a particularly grueling tour that had left me physically and emotionally drained, but also incredibly proud of the work my unit had accomplished. I was looking forward to a bit of normalcy, a chance to relax and reconnect with my civilian life, even if only for an afternoon. I arrived at Aunt Carol's house, a sprawling suburban home with a meticulously manicured lawn, the smell of barbecue already wafting through the air. The usual suspects were there: my quiet Uncle Tom, always glued to the grill, my over-the-gossipy Aunt Susan, already regaling anyone who would listen with the latest neighborhood scandal, and of course, Sarah and Mark. Sarah and I had always had a complicated relationship. Growing up, she was the golden child, the one who excelled in everything, from academics to extracurriculars, while I was always the rebellious one, the tomboy who preferred climbing trees, playing with dolls. Our paths diverged even further when I decided to enlist in the Army right after high school. My parents, while supportive, were a little apprehensive, but Sarah openly ridiculed my decision. "Why would you want to throw your life away like that?" she'd asked, her nose wrinkling in disgust. "Don't you want a real career? Something prestigious?" She went on to college, got a degree in something business related that I never quite understood, and married Mark, a man who, to put it mildly, was a pompous ass with a trust fund and an inflated sense of self-importance. They lived in a mansion, drove luxury cars, and never missed an opportunity to subtly, or not so subtly, remind everyone of their financial superiority. Over the years, our interactions became increasingly strained. Every family gathering was an opportunity for Sarah to subtly undermine my choices, to highlight the perceived differences in our lifestyles. She'd ask about my little army adventures in a condescending tone, or make comments about how she couldn't imagine living without central air conditioning, knowing full well I'd spent months in dusty, scorching desert conditions. Mark, of course, was her echo chamber, always ready with a snide remark about the military being a waste of taxpayer money, or a place for people who couldn't make it in the real world. I usually just bit my tongue. I'd learned long ago that arguing with them was like trying to teach a pig to sing. It wasted my time and annoyed the pig. Besides, I had more important things to worry about. I had a duty to my country, to my fellow soldiers, and to myself. Their petty insults felt insignificant in the face of what I experienced overseas. But this particular day felt different. Maybe it was the lingering exhaustion from deployment, or maybe it was just one too many snide comments, but I felt a growing irritation simmering beneath my calm exterior. The barbecue was in full swing, and everyone was gathered around a large patio table, plates piled high with grilled chicken, potato salad, and corn on the cob. I was regaling my younger niece, Lily, with a toned-down story about some of the funny antics my squad mates got up to during downtime, when Sarah interjected. "Oh, still telling your little war stories, are we?" she said, her voice dripping with mock sweetness. "You know, Lily, your aunt here just loves to play dress-up in her camouflage. It's quite adorable, really." Mark chuckled, and a few other relatives, uncomfortable, shifted in their seats. I felt my jaw clench. "It's not dress-up, Sarah," I said, trying to keep my voice even. "It's my job, a job that I take very seriously." "Oh, I'm sure you do," she said, rolling her eyes. "But let's be real, you're not exactly saving the world, are you? You're just following orders. Anyone can do that. It's not like you're a doctor or a lawyer or someone who actually contributes something meaningful to society." My Aunt Carol, sensing the tension, tried to interject. "Now, Sarah, that's enough. We appreciate what our soldiers do." But Sarah wasn't done. She leaned forward, a smug look on her face. "I mean, look at her. She comes back from these deployments, and what does she have to show for it? A few medals, a scarred psyche. Meanwhile, Mark and I are building businesses, creating jobs, actually making a difference." Mark nodded sagely, as if he were a captain of industry rather than a glorified trust fund baby who spent his days trading stocks from his yacht. The audacity, the sheer disrespect, was breathtaking. I looked at their complacent faces, the way they puffed themselves up with self-importance, and a thought began to form in my mind. A mischievous, slightly vengeful thought. So that's the situation I was in, and I had to make a choice. Here I was, being belittled and mocked by people who had no idea what I'd been through, what any soldier goes through. I could have just walked away, as I usually did. I could have let their words sting and then faded into the background, avoiding eye contact for the rest of the evening. But something inside me snapped. All the years of silent endurance, all the dismissive comments, all the times I'd swallowed my pride, it all bubbled to the surface. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have let it go, or would you have fought back? What would have been your breaking point? I took a deep breath, letting the silence hang for a moment, letting their smug expressions settle. Then I reached into the breast pocket of my jacket, where I always kept it. My military ID. It wasn't just a piece of plastic. It was a symbol of my commitment, my rank, my identity. I pulled it out, slowly, deliberately, and placed it face up on the table, directly between Sarah and Mark. The plastic made a soft click as it hit the wood. Their eyes, initially curious, widened slightly as they registered what it was. Sarah, ever the first to speak, looked at it with a puzzled expression. "What's this, your library card?" she quipped, but her voice lacked its usual confidence. Mark leaned in, squinting, and then his eyes practically bugged out of his head. He cleared his throat, a nervous cough, and pointed a trembling finger at the card. It says Major," he stammered. The word hung in the air, a small, unassuming word that suddenly held immense power. The rest of the table fell silent. My Aunt Carol gasped softly. Sarah's face, which had been contorted in a sneer, now paled noticeably. "Major," she repeated, her voice barely a whisper, "but I thought you were just a grunt." I smiled, a genuine, slow smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. "Well, Sarah," I said, my voice calm and clear, "while I'm incredibly proud to have served as a grunt, as you so eloquently put it, I've also been promoted a few times since then. That's major to you." I let that sink in for a moment. The implications were clear. I wasn't just playing soldier. I was an officer. I had significant responsibilities, commanded troops, and had earned my rank through years of dedication, sacrifice, and leadership. The silence at the table was deafening, punctuated only by the distant chirping of crickets. Sarah looked like she'd been slapped. Her jaw hung open, and her eyes darted between my face and the ID card. Mark, ever the opportunist, tried to recover. "Oh, well, congratulations, I suppose," he mumbled, but the forced enthusiasm in his voice was pathetic. That's very impressive, for a military person." I didn't let him off the hook. "And you, Mark," I said, turning my gaze to him. "What exactly have you been up to since our last family gathering? Still managing your father's investment portfolio, I presume? Still creating jobs by existing?" His face flushed a deep crimson. He had no answer. The rest of the evening was, predictably, awkward. Sarah and Mark, completely deflated, spent the remainder of the barbecue huddled together, whispering conspiratorially, occasionally shooting nervous glances in my direction. They didn't make another single dismissive comment about my service. In fact, they barely spoke at all. Other family members, those who had previously stayed neutral or even laughed at Sarah's jokes, now approached me with genuine curiosity and respect. My niece Lily, her eyes wide with admiration, asked me if I really commanded people, and I told her about the amazing soldiers I had the privilege to lead. It felt good, not just the validation, but the feeling of having finally stood up for myself, of having asserted my identity and my worth in a way they couldn't ignore. The aftermath was interesting. I received a belated and incredibly stiff apology email from Sarah a few days later, clearly prompted by my Aunt Carol, who had probably read her the riot act. It was full of platitudes about how she didn't understand the complexities of military life, and how she respected my choices. I didn't respond. Mark, as expected, never said a word, probably too proud or too ashamed to admit he was wrong. Our relationship, or what was left of it, remained strained, but the dynamic had shifted. They no longer openly mocked me. The power balance had irrevocably changed. I realized then that sometimes you have to be willing to stand your ground, to show people who you truly are, even if it means disrupting the peace. It wasn't about seeking revenge. It was about demanding respect. In the end, this whole experience taught me a valuable lesson. Never let anyone diminish your accomplishments or belittle your chosen path, especially not people who haven't walked a single step in your shoes. My service wasn't just a job. It was a calling, a part of who I am, and it deserved recognition, not ridicule. So, if you've ever felt misunderstood, or if someone has ever tried to make you feel less than for pursuing your passions, remember that your worth isn't determined by their limited perspective. It's determined by your own integrity and your own achievements. Like this video, if you were on my side in this crazy family drama. Subscribe for more stories like this, where I share some of the wildest things that have happened in my life, both in and out of uniform. And please, share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section below. I'd love to hear your take on how I handled it. I'll see you all in the next story.